Celebrity interviews live from the grotto with Greg Hanna. Greg, what's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic and excited to talk to our guest today.
Absolutely. We got two Neils, and I love any Neil that's on the program. We have Neil Smith, former general manager of the New York Rangers and New York Islanders, Stanley Cup champion. Neil, thanks for stopping by, man. And you know what? I can't say I was a huge fan of yours when you were with the Rangers. I was a Penguins fan through and through, and we were winning cups, and you too were winning cups at that time period.
Well, we were winning one. We might have been able to win two had we not had the debacle in Pittsburgh when Ronnie Francis scored from outside the blue line on Mike Richter, and that started a big comeback for the Penguins, and they won three straight and then won eight straight after that against the next two rounds. So those were great years. That was a great rivalry, the Penguins and the Rangers. And Mario Lemieux, of course, was such a treat to watch play, and along with everybody else that they had there. But Greg Patrick's a dear friend, and I think back on those days with great memories.
All right, good, Greg.
Very
First
cool.
question for Neil.
So a quick highlight reel for you, Neil. So what's one trade or signing you pulled off that still makes you smile today every time you think about it?
I think other than the obvious, you trade for Messier, and of course that's legendary now because of his career that he had. But I think Adam Graves I drafted Adam Graves for the Detroit Red Wings in 1986. And then I left the Red Wings in 89 to go to the Rangers. And in those years, Adam got traded to Edmonton, and then he won a Stanley Cup in 1990 in Edmonton, and then I was able to sign him to come to the Rangers in 1991. And because of knowing his family, his parents, his sister, and everybody else, knowing him from 18 years old, and him becoming an iconic Ranger, and still to this day works for the Rangers and has his number retired, I think I'm very proud of him and his career.
Absolutely. And you know what I think about the name Neil Smith and general managers? You were considered one of the greatest architects, you and Craig Patrick. Would you agree in a lot of ways? Some people talking about some of the gurus of general managers. What made you, people knew your name. Not everyone knows every general manager of every NHL team. And same thing in the NFL or NBA, whenever that general manager, if they're the ones that really pulled the trigger and made the big moves and saved teams and really were the architect to bring the right coach in, that is when people know that name. So what do you think made you known so well?
I think it was a time when hockey really needed a big city like New York, Chicago, LA, something to win and be on the national stage. And when we were able to trade for Messier and build that team up, and the team suddenly was a contender, something that the Rangers hadn't been for many, many years, I think that caught the imagination of the country, and in that it was New York. And they weren't used to New York. They were used to the Yankees, but they certainly weren't used to the Rangers being up there. And I think that caught the imagination of the country. And so therefore, my notoriety came up being the guy that was trying to put it all together under immense pressure, of course, of a 54-year drought that they'd had in New York City.
Wow. Neil, if you could build a dream line, today using any players, past or present, who'd be on it?
Oh boy. Well, I'm certainly Mario and Wayne Gretzky would be there for sure. Bobby Orr would be on defense. I'd say Guy Lafleur would have to be in there with Mario and Wayne. And I don't know the other defensemen other than, of course, I would say Brian Leetch, being very prejudicial for him. But it's hard to leave out Gordie Howe. It's hard to leave out people like Mark Messier and others. But the names that come to my mind as fast as I can are from my era, which would be Wayne and Mario, who are the two that I think are the most iconic names of the 90s.
Yeah. How difficult was it being a general manager in New York? Okay. Especially a Canadian, and I don't know where you're from in Canada, but New York is the everything is the fastest minute. Everything's open all the time. It's such a difficult place to coach, to be a general manager to play at, especially nowadays versus years before? How much pressure was that?
There was a tremendous amount of pressure that you put on yourself to perform on that stage, on that big stage. And I think I was lucky because, first of all, I always had a desire and an imagination to be in the United States, even when I was growing up in Canada. My mother put that in me somehow. And growing up, we got all the Buffalo TV stations, so it was all about the Yankees all the time, and New York was just this, sort of emerald city that from afar that you thought of, but you thought of it, or I always thought of it as the epicenter of the world, the world's, the number one place in the world. Everything came out of New York, and the rest of the world, revolved around New York type thing. And so then in the early 80s, I had a chance to go to New York, and then I got a job with the Islanders doing some scouting for them, and that's how my career started. I worked for free, and then the second year I made a huge amount of money as $10,000 working for the Islanders in 1981, 82. But I realized living on Long Island, the magnitude of the Rangers and the city of New York, and how different it was, and this enormous giant that if you could ever tackle that you'd have done something that the world hadn't seen before. So I had that imagination in me. And so then when it just happened to be in 1989 that the Rangers made a management change from Phil Esposito, and I was a young guy, 35 years old, and they tapped me out of Detroit, and I went there, and I was scared to death, just literally scared to death. And even though I knew New York and everything else, it was so different than working for the Red Wings and living in Toronto, and that it took quite a while to get used to it. And the city, just to put some perspective on it, was still the David Dinkins mayor era. Rudy Giuliani hadn't got elected
Oh
yet. That was
man.
down the road, and so it was a different New York. And so that's what I walked into. The subways still had all the graffiti all over the sides of them and stuff like that. That was a different era than it turned out to be. But it was quite a thing. But I guess I love to try to take on things. I've always been like this. I don't know why, craziness maybe, but to say, like, for people to be able to say, like, how did you do that? Like, what, are you crazy? Why did you try that? Why did you do that? How did you do that? I've really enjoyed that kind of a challenge, and being able to surprise people that I could really pull something off.
Very cool. So since you brought that up, a quick follow-up. So like what's one thing, that you're out of the GM seat now that you absolutely miss in the job, and what's one thing you don't miss at all?
I don't miss the owners. Like I certainly don't miss the craziness of being told something by somebody who doesn't know a thimble as much as you know, and then yet they're trying to tell you what you should and shouldn't do when they don't know what they're talking about. I don't miss that, and that's what goes along with sometimes, not all owners, but some of the owners that are that think that they're smart because they were good at their business, and so therefore they must know better than you how to run the thing you've been doing your whole life. But I think all of us have put up with that at some point in our careers, in our lives. The thing I really miss is the leadership role that I had there, and not so much in that you're leading the players or the coaches. It was more the staffing and the smaller people, the people that you had to enrich their lives and make them have their own personal success, and organizing things and seeing people be happy and get happiness from organizing things and making things good for people. I really miss that. I miss being able to get satisfaction out of seeing people succeed, and I mean that on a very elementary level, not necessarily seeing Mark Messier with the Stanley Cup, although who would not want to do that, but it was more seeing, people meet their spouse and end up with families and have kids, and knowing that you helped make their life what it became.
No, absolutely. And it's something that you've made a difference in lots of players' lives because they're younger guys, right? When they play in the NHL, some of them come really young and you get to see them grow up and become men. I think that's part of what you saw working in the NHL is getting these guys to end up having careers after hockey and to really become great members of society.
Yeah, and that's right. And then you have a lifelong, hopefully you have a lifelong relationship with them based upon your commonality that you had back in the day when they were players. And you're right about saying they're young. And at this age now, I really realize how young they are because I go to the games and you have guys playing in the NHL now that weren't born on 9/11. They weren't born yet. And nine
Wow.
eleven is like yesterday to me, as it is, I'm sure, to you guys. Um, just for a reminder for everybody, 9/11 was September 11th, 2001, which is, yes, I know it's 24 years ago, but you have guys under the age of 24 that play in the NHL. You have, so that's startling to me that you have players playing in the NHL that are born in the 2000s. Um, and you know, you look at their faces under the helmets and you realize they're babies. But when you see them from above and you're watching a hockey game, just like when you're watching a baseball game or a football game, to me, a baseball player that's playing for the Yankees looks the same as Mickey Mantle looked. Like they look like guys that are older than me that are really good baseball players until I really take a look at their face and see, oh my God, they could be my kid. you know. So and that's the great part about sports, I think, is that no matter what age you are, you don't go there and think, oh, this is no fun. These guys they're only 22 years old. I'm so such and such years older than them. You go there and look at them as hockey players, and that's all, just as hockey players. And the uniform they're wearing is the same uniform that your heroes wore many years ago, and so you're still cheering for that uniform.
Oh, man, that's so true. You've had a front row seat to some of the best rivalries in hockey, I mean, ever. Um, what's your favorite one?
I think for me personally, my very favorite rivalry was when Wayne Gretzky was on LA and we would play the Kings in the LA Forum. And they had a star-studded cast, and we had a star-studded cast out in New York. And there was all kinds of celebrities that wanted to go to the game. And that was just so cool. Like it was, first of all, that was before I knew Wayne as I do now because he played for the Rangers at the end of his career. And it was such an awesome thing to see him out there and think, my goodness, the LA Kings are a great team now. They were always near the bottom before that, and then they got Wayne and they became something. And we'd go out there and it was like LA, New York is such a great rivalry to begin with, no matter what you talk about. Um, now that the fierce rivalries, of course, are the Islanders and the Rangers, two New York teams, the New Jersey Devils and the Rangers. Rangers are hated by a lot of different teams because they're the Rangers had more fans really than anybody. And I'll tell you a funny story. Roger Nielsen, the legendary coach that I had there in the beginning of my time in 1989 through 91, was an Ontario guy like me. Had been coach of Toronto Maple Leafs back when I was much younger. And I said to him one day, I said, Roger, you're coaching the team that has the most fans in the world. And he looked at me and goes, how could that possibly be? He says, the Toronto Maple Leafs have the most fans. I said, no, they don't. I said, think about it. New York City is the most populated city in North America by far. So therefore, and the Rangers have been in the league since 1926, there are more New Yorkers spread out across the country than any other category of people. So by the very numbers of New Yorkers, you have to have the most fans spread out all over the place because it's New York. And he thought about that for a while. And after we'd been on the road for a while, he goes, you're right. there are New York fans everywhere because New York has been so big and been around for so long, that it's very evident. And I think that's the thing, is that wherever you went as the Rangers, you saw those blue jerseys out there, or white jerseys at the time, and the people whose parents had been Ranger fans, whose grandparents had been Ranger fans, and that they were going to stick with you no matter what.
Yeah, they absolutely. And I think of MSG as I'm a former professional wrestler. I did the minor leagues. The biggest arena I wrestled in was Omaha Civic Center. I always dreamed of wrestling in Madison Square Garden. What makes Madison Square Garden the Mecca forever? Even though I went to Big East tournament games with my parents. My parents would take me. I'm a big Pitt basketball fan, and I would go to the Big East tournaments in Madison Square Garden. It was my dream Mecca arena always. What makes it so special?
I think it's the mystique, the mystique of the building, that it's dead center in the middle of the city. It's just down the street from the Empire State Building. It's been built on a pad that was put over top of a train station, and the ice surface, or the court, is on the fifth floor. So when you go in, you've got to go way up to get even on to watch. It's a round building that was built. Was the architects back in the '60s were Finns, I guess, and they had a liking to round buildings, but they had designed this round building, and the way the ceiling is patterned, that's so famous. And I just think it's in the middle of Manhattan. I mean, what other sporting venue? You can't even possibly think of a sporting venue being in Manhattan, in that crazy place, and all the trains going and coming underneath the building all the time. Not that you hear them, but I mean, there's a million subways and a million New Jersey transits and Long Island Railroad and Amtrak and everything going in and out of there. I think it's just that mystique of going there and sort of realizing, like, this is crazy. This is in the middle of all this craziness, and it still is a thrill to go in there.
Neil was asking you about, as a GM, it's like a pressure cooker, and you agreed, especially with the owners on
Yeah,
top of you, telling you what to do, like most owners do.
yeah.
Are there any memorable locker or draft day fun moments? Like, do you remember?
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of funny things that went on. Some of them you can't repeat. Some of them you can. I remember we went on a actually, it was in Pittsburgh, so you're going to enjoy this. We were staying at the hotel downtown that still had elevator operators in it for a long time. They finally stopped that big old hotel in downtown Pittsburgh, and they actually had the ladies that still operated the elevators in the early '90s. But anyway, we were in Pittsburgh, and of course, the way it happens when you come with a team is the travel guy gets off the plane and goes ahead of everybody else in a cab or whatever to the hotel to pick up all the room keys, to get everything organized, to give them out to the players when they walk into the lobby, and to the staff. And so our PR guy and our travel guy had hurried ahead to the Pittsburgh hotel, and they were getting all the keys ready for the rooms. And they went up to the other PR guy's room and set his room up before he got there. And so when he got there and he got his key, he goes up to his room and it was those plastic, you shove them in the door keys back then. And he put it in the door and went into his room, and they had every prank set up in there. So he opens a closet to put his hanging bag in there, and a bucket of water falls down. And then he goes to the he gets in there, and they put on SpectroVision, what that is, the stuff, and and they put the volume way up so that all the sounds of one of those movies was coming out really loudly. And then he goes and grabs the remote, and they'd taken the batteries out of the remote, so he couldn't turn it down. And just as he's doing that, somebody's calling on the phone for him to arrange an interview, and he picks it up, and they got the Vaseline in the earpiece when he put it up to his ear. And then after all this, he gets all that taken care of, and he goes to lie down, and they put the trash can inside the pillowcase, so they bang your head. Thing, saying all these things go on at once. And I never forget that. That was hilarious that they pulled that off and did all those pranks.
Wow. Just a lot of interesting things. Greg has his final question. Unless you have one more question, Greg, your final question you ask all your celebrities.
Oh, that's great. I really appreciate it. It's been a real privilege and honor to meet with you, Neil. So mentoring time. Tell me, what do you feel is the most important thing in life you've ever learned?
Well, the most important thing in life that I've ever learned is that you have to stay in the moment, and you have to get the most you can out of the moment you're in, and don't waste it by thinking about what you did in the moment that's already gone by, or what you're going to do in the moment that hasn't even got here yet. So concentrate and be in the moment, and be here. Don't be somewhere else. Be right here where you are. And unfortunately, I had to learn that through a horrible thing that happened to me. But stay. That's the biggest thing I can say, is stay in the moment, and don't lose this moment, because you don't know how many moments you've got left. And I was speaking to a therapist the other day, just in conversation, and I said to him, one of the things that's really been bothering me at this stage in my life is my age, and how many years do I have left? And then I start to do the math and go, okay, this is your age, and you're how many years away from being at that age when most people they pass away. And I said, but I got myself out of that by saying, stop. You don't even know if you're going to be here tomorrow, let alone whether you're going to be here 25 years from now. So don't even think about it, because you don't know how long you got left. So you can think about, at a maximum I've got left, but you'll probably never hit that maximum anyway. So just enjoy today. Assume you're going to go on forever, because that's the only way to enjoy life. And stay where you are, and stay present, and enjoy whatever it is you're doing at that moment.
That's great advice.
It's fantastic advice. You have a podcast. Where can people check out the podcast and stuff like that, Neil?
Well, you can see it behind my head here, NHL Wraparound. I have a partner, Vic Morin, and we're on all the podcast platforms, from Apple to Spotify to Amazon, and on iHeart, and on YouTube video. And we discuss the NHL. We have great guests. We have high-profile NHL guests on every week, and we do 4 shows a week, NHL Wraparound. Then a subset of it is called Short Shifts, which just brings the listener up to date on what's happened the last couple of days. We do a New York-centric show, because there are 3 teams in the New York area, and because of our listeners are a lot of people that, from my background of being in New York, so we do a show on that once a week. And then we have a lot of fun, and our goal is to have you learn something you wouldn't have known had you not listened. Mm-hmm. So just one thing in the show that every listener couldn't have known before he started to listen. That's our goal. And so I think we're accomplishing that. We're 14 months in, and we're having a lot of fun, and just hoping that we'll get more subscribers and listeners.
All right. We appreciate it, Neil. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me on, Neil. Really nice to meet you guys.
All right. That was a special simulcast, Neil Haley Show, and celebrity interviews live from the Grotto. Greg Hanna, guys. Take care.